Here.
Councilmember Rule.
Here.
Councilmember Whitman.
Here.
Councilmember Mang.
Here.
And Mr. Montgomery, you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, Mayor. Everyone please rise. Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome to the closed session part of our special meeting, Tuesday, February 4th. Do I have an approval of the agenda?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Mr. Montgomery, do we need to approve that or just yeas or nays?
Unanimous consent through the mayor is okay.
Yep. Does anybody reject it? No. Okay, great. So let me take public comments on these two items. Let me start with Robin Gerber. I know. Fast-paced around here.
Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Boy, this looks better than the hospital where I still am. And again, let me thank the wonderful nurses and certified nurse assistants and everyone at Ojai Hospital. I'm Robin Gerber. I live here in Ojai. 2 years of anger and accusations over Councilmember Rule's decision to expose what she considered a gross violation of the Brown Act is quite enough, don't you think? I will not go into the history of petty and vengeful retaliation kicked off sadly by Councilman Whitman that has led us here. Put this matter to bed tonight. It is overdue. Indemnification of public officials is a simple matter. It is meant to encourage people to run for office without fear of being crippled financially, where, as in this case, an utterly bogus lawsuit is brought against them for just doing their job. It seems to me that none of you can sit easily on this council as long as you allow one member to attack another in this way. Might you be next? If you don't indemnify Ms. Rule, you are declaring open season on yourselves. Think of the issues that have riled people of late. Might this lead to a lawsuit against you? Will your colleagues hang you out to dry out of personal animus? Maybe you don't think so today, but boy, we don't know what comes tomorrow. That's what happened here. And no amount of distracting, confusing legal wrapping can turn this sow's ear into a silk purse. If we want to attract bright, committed new council members, do the right thing tonight. Indemnify Ms. Rule, show that public service is valued and protected. Then move on to the many important issues of the city. And finally, I will ask, and I've just learned that tens of thousands of dollars have been spent on outside counsel for this matter. Who found this outside attorney? And what, if any, business, financial, or personal relationship do they have with anyone on the council? Because, geez, we have seen this movie before. You weren't here, Ben. But wasn't the wasted $30,000 on the infamous Minner memo during the Becker housing battle, for which a contract was never made public, by the way, nor the memo, for as far as I know, wasn't that waste of time and money enough? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gerber. Larry Steingold.
Larry Steingold. Regarding the anticipated litigation, agreed. I mean, we need to get this settled and moved on, just like backdating an ordinance, just like moving on from the gymnastic fiasco and not having a post-mortem. It's time to move on, settle it, get it done, and let's move forward. On the property, if you haven't gotten an appraisal and you don't know the value, please do so, because if the number's low, go forward with the project. If the number's high, please consider using the money to start a housing organization or helping somebody with a bigger impact than building 4 units for sale. I know we need housing, but if it's a large number, I don't know what that could be, I don't know, $1 million, 800, 700. It could mean something more important than 4 units. So please consider that. And regarding This is 1/8-inch ember screen. We just had the Camarillo Mountain fires. We just had the Palisades fires. We just had Paradise. They're still rebuilding. This is what they say could have alleviated or deterred or stopped fires in.
Let me just ask you to settle this, just because that'd be more like a public comment.
Right.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay.
Thank you.
Fine.
Thank you, Mr. Steingold. Got it. Okay. With that, is there anything online? No.
One moment, please. Was not prepared.
I know. Sorry about that.
We do have one raised hand.
Please.
John Drucker.
Thank you.
John Drucker, you have the floor. John, you have the ability to unmute.
Okay, there we go. Unmute. It's not cooperating. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm John Drucker, counsel to Leslie Rule. Since you've already paid outside lawyers Meyer Neve $80,000, to the best of my knowledge, to brief the council on this matter, let me respond to its findings and recommendation. Although that law firm did not even cite one statute or case, it was clear that its analysis was exclusively under Government Code Section 995.2A. It found that subsection 3, under that section, Leslie had a specific conflict of interest. The firm then advised you that it was optional whether to indemnify her. But Myers-Neve was dead wrong. The city's obligation is mandatory, not optional under 995. That is because, aside from never identifying the specific conflict that Leslie had, the firm failed to inform or advise the council of the second of only two sentences, I might add, of the statute. The second sentence, which they omitted, states, quote, "For the purposes of this section, specific conflict of interest means a conflict of interest or an adverse or pecuniary interest," pay attention now, "as specified by statute or by a rule or regulation of the public entity." They omitted that. The public entity here, of course, is the city of Ojai, and clearly Ojai has no such statute, rule, or regulation specifying any such conflict. The council is thus required to indemnify Leslie for all her costs in defending this case. If the city council refuses to indemnify her, Leslie will be compelled to sue the city. After all, she's on the hook for hundreds of thousands of dollars. What would you do in her position? In such a case, the city would not only lose, it would have to pay for its own defense as well as pay Leslie's attorney's fees in prosecuting the case. We'd probably be close to $1 million in cost to the city, a scenario I think you all want to avoid. Last, let me give you two pieces of tangentially relevant advice. First, it took me only about 2 to 3 hours to research and write up this analysis, maybe $2,000 worth, tops. This city paying an outside law firm $80,000 for clearly erroneous advice is outrageous. The city should ask Myers-Neve to give back all the money it has received from the city. Second, to limit the city's ongoing exposure, I would advise you to call on former Mayor Sticks and tell a friend, Sabrina Venskis, to immediately dismiss the case. Last, I'm available for questions, and if I can just finish the sentence.
Just quickly, please.
And insofar as the council have its attorney, Mr. Summers, present during closed session, I would ask in the interest of fairness that Leslie's attorneys, Mr. Johnson and I, also be allowed to be present. Alternatively, allow us to participate as you deliberate in open session.
Thank you, Mr. Drucker.
No more raised hands, Mayor.
Okay. Oh,
Are we
are we
expecting
expecting
someone?
another raised
Yeah,
hand?
I am actually expecting someone.
We have
Okay.
2 participants, but no one has a raised hand.
Who's the second participant?
First name Linda.
Oh, okay.
No other participants online.
Okay. Is it possible for me to read my attorney's letter? I guess he can't get online. I'm not sure.
One that That one that we've received already
No, this was his this was his statement, his public statement
that he was going to read for us?
that he was going to read, but apparently he can't get online. So I don't know how that actually plays out.
I don't know what the protocol is here.
I don't either.
So his statement amounts to a public comment. Council members can make a public comment. So you can use 3 minutes and make a public comment to read that statement.
Okay.
Really? Council members can use, wow. I thought that, but I thought maybe I had to go to the podium. All right.
Great.
I would defer to the mayor on whether he'll require you to go to the podium.
No, stay there. Stay there.
Okay, so thank you. I will go ahead and do this.
Please.
My name is Stephen Johnson. I was counsel of record for Councilmember Rule in defense of a lawsuit brought against her for alleged violations of the Brown Act. I successfully argued that the lawsuit was meritless and was brought only to prevent her from making public statements and exercising her duty for public participation as a member of the council. During my successful defense of Councilmember Rule, 2 things became clear. First, the lawsuit brought against Councilmember Rule was politically motivated. Second, simply Ojai attorney Sabrina Vinskas, former Mayor Sticks, and Councilman Whitman were the chief protagonists in the suit. The plaintiffs themselves were mere stalking horses. The only evidence presented against Councilmember Rule was provided through declarations from the plaintiff's lawyer and Councilmember Whitman. No so-called plaintiff offered any declaration in support of the suit at all. Councilmember Whitman was the key player in the failed lawsuit. Ventura County Superior Court judge specifically referenced a false statement contained in Councilmember Whitman's declaration in his order in favor of Councilmember Rule. The plaintiffs have appealed from the judgment, and I continue to represent Councilmember Rule on appeal. I am addressing you tonight because the city has breached its statutory obligation to provide or pay for Councilmember Rule's defense. Tonight, you will meet in closed session to discuss and vote on reimbursing Councilmember Rule for the costs of her defense. I'm not here to discuss Councilmember Rule's legal right to a defense. You can hire lawyers to argue almost any position. I understand you've also already paid a lawyer $80,000 to research whether or not you can refuse to defend Councilmember Rule. I understand you have been informed that you can choose to vote on the issue. I understand you have been informed that Councilmember Rule should not vote on reimbursement because she has a conflict of interest, but Councilmember Whitman does not have a conflict of interest and can vote. I find these legal conclusions to be ridiculous, but those are arguments for a court to decide. The issue and vote before you tonight involves a straightforward the city will spend far more if it refuses to reimburse Rule and has to defend that decision than it will spend to satisfy its defense obligation. Even if the city could find some far-fetched legal justification for refusing to reimburse Councilmember Rule, the position will force Councilmember Rule to sue. I know that because she cannot pay my bill, and I will need to bring that suit in order to be paid. Similarly, if Rule is prohibited from voting on the issue and Councilmember Whitman isn't, I will argue that decision would suggest a deeper conflict, evidencing favored treatment between council members Rule and Whitman. If Councilmember Rule must sue, and absent reimbursement she must also raise any and all claims she had at the time of filing. This is required. She will and must include claims against the city relating to the unequal treatment that allowed Councilmember Whitman, the person who cussed out female colleagues in closed session, supported a suit brought to interfere with a council member's right to public participation, and made false statements under oath to support that malicious claim. Please reimburse.
Thank you.
One last sentence, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
The city will spend more defending an indefensible position than it will to simply fulfill its legal obligation without any further delay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. No other comments. Okay.
Okay.
We will adjourn to closed session and return.